is how has your involvement with the national award process impacted teaching and learning at your site or at the sites where you've been working?
Hello, and can you hear me okay? Yes? All right, so I don't need the microphone. Well, I started the process when I moved back to the Imperial Valley after having been in East Palo Alto and having started a high school with Linda Darling Hammond, who you saw in the video. And one of the things that when we started this high school, we were all on board about becoming nationally board certified teachers once we had the 3 years of the ability to start the process. And so I turned 3 years back in Imperial County and kept my promise. And it was like, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 board certified teachers in the whole area. And so it wasn't something that got a lot of attention, and it still isn't, sadly. So I went through the process by myself and with the support of a principal. I was working in middle school, and she really acknowledged, like, wow, this is good work that you're doing. The superintendent at the district where I work now has also been a big supporter, but sadly it's been the teachers within our district that have not supported it. And they're like, oh, I guess you can buy that online, and if they don't, and as much as I try and I make an effort to educate them about the process, it hasn't been I haven't been very successful, and I send out little emails, and so this year we actually have a teacher who went through the process, did not achieve, but she's going back and as an advanced candidate, and we'll try again. And so, there are 2 of us now that are really pushing for this. And I do want to say, just a note for those of you who are nationally board certified, that we do have a new executive director, new president, Ron Thorpe, and I was under the impression when I became nationally board certified that we would take the profession to another level, and that all of us would come together and go, yeah, we're really pushing this up to a higher standard, and it just kind of stayed flat there. And but we're doing that now. As a board, we're fighting for the teacher's voice and to get more to empower us so that we can make bigger, stronger strides in education and the impact of our professional development.
I certified in 2000 as an early childhood generalist. I was one of the first 10 in San Bernardino County to certify, and I was the only one in my district for about 5 years to be national board certified, with the second person actually being my sister in the district. Looking back, I realized it was the only professional development that impacted what was going on in my classroom, changed me as a teacher that year. And then I became a principal of a very underperforming school, brand new principal, only been an AP for 2 years. And I walked in, and like Daniela, I was very frustrated. Walking into curriculum-based instruction, I could literally go through 10 of my first grade classrooms and see each one answering the next sentence on the book, on the report, as I walked through. And the school I was at was about 96, 97% free and reduced lunch, 80% English language learners, and we were about 1,100 students, so it was a high poverty, high gain area. And I kept thinking back to all the professional development we had to do. I mean, we were a program improvement year 5 plus school, so we had all the sanctions you can think of, 2 to 4 weeks of professional development, required throw in, throw out. We were just required to do everything. So it was frustrating because, one, I had never been in a situation to teach like that, and teachers weren't allowed to think for the students. So it became a slow process within 3 years for me, and in the spring of 2006, the teachers made a decision to move forward with full board certification, and that was the first year that Take 1 was available. I had 45 teachers at my school site at that point. 22 attempted full board certification, 23 did Take 1, and 100% of them submitted their portfolios. Like Daniela's school, being a high poverty school, the pass rate is not as high. Out of the 22 teachers, only 5 certified the first year. But the changes in the school were amazing. And I will tell you, at the end of 2 years, the school exited out of program improvement year 5. So it was a focus on what was going on in the classroom and not following the curriculum verbatim, but
I'm in really good company. I am not board certified, and when I went through support provider training, I was told that getting certification is much more difficult than getting a PhD. So I feel like I'm in excellent company here with these ladies. My job in the district, I am at the district level, and I have the privilege of being the BITSA induction coordinator and support provider with budget cuts. As you know, our programs are downsized quite a bit, and also the hiring of new teachers. So I have 41 teachers in my program, and I support most of those. I have a few that are special ed, and I have a program specialist that helps. But also in my job description is I'm in charge of national board certification, and I'm also in charge of PD Online. I've built a PD website, and also Teacher of the Year. So I wear a couple of hats. The one thing that I love about national board certification, and we just started with a cohort about 3 years ago, was our very 2009 we started. I went to the assistant superintendent and I said, you know, we don't have national board, and that's in my job description. I think we really should do something about that because, you know, our BITSA teachers go out and they're really, really well prepared. They know about formative assessment. That would be a wonderful segue into national board, and can we do it? And he said, yeah, why don't you investigate that? So I happened to get the information about national board from a CNTA, the vice president of CNTA, and I contacted the regional outreach director, which was Linda Manuel at the time, and we put together an information session, had about 35 teachers come the first time. We also had an advisory board of administrators and a lot of support from the district office. So we created our first cohort. We had 8 teachers go through the first time, and the first year only 1 teacher certified. But all of those teachers went back for the second year. The second year, 3 more certified. And we have 4 teachers who have not certified from that first cohort. One of them has dropped out, but the other 3 are charging ahead with the third year. So we're excited about that. Our second cohort started last year. We had 4 teachers come on board, and 1 person certified last year. The other 3 are charging ahead for year 2. And then we started a new cohort this year with 4 teachers. We have a large district. We're the 9th largest district in the state. And so you would think that more teachers would jump on this and be involved. And we're hoping that this will grow because we really see that it impacts student performance from the teachers that have certified in our district. And this is one of them.
So, okay, well, I first thought we were going to introduce ourselves, so I got all ready to introduce myself. And so if you can humor me, I'm just going to kind of start from there with a little bit of my journey. I started out seeking national board achievement when it's almost like someone like a stalker or like a ghost, like following after me all these years, because I first heard about it in San Bernardino when I first started my career as an intern, and they had a great professional development group there, and their cohort was really interesting because they would ask that if you were seeking national board certification, you just attend the meetings and don't even sign up for it the first time. You just get a feel for what the process looks like. And that was an amazing thing, and so I thought, maybe one day, not today. And so then when I got to Norfolk Unified, I was probably in my 5th year of teaching by then, and I ran into someone at an EPA conference, and they said, oh yeah, you should really seek national board certification while you're getting your master's. That's a really good idea. So I was getting my master's from UC Riverside with a Tier 1 credential, so I thought, well, that lady told me it was a good idea. I think I'll try it. And well, I can tell you from experience that it did work for one of our support providers, Kevin Gonzalez. It did not work for me. It was too much. And I can be very honest when I say that I waited to the last minute to turn everything in for my national board. But I made sure that I passed my exit exams for UCR. So I got my master's and my Tier 1 credential, but I did not certify. And I did walk away from the process. I just walked away. And so it wasn't until I saw the flyers for the national board process, the cohort that was being developed, that Carrie started, that I thought, you know what, that's unfinished business for me. I think I want to go back and try again. I know I definitely can be a better teacher, and I want to go for it. So I called her, and she said, oh, let's do it. So, and I'm also the type of person that I do better in a group. You know, I need other people pushing me. And so the cohort really did allow me to have accountability, which was really important to me. We met once a month with Kevin, our support provider. CNTA, our union, was also very supportive. They gave us a place to meet every month. They provided snacks and food. That's always nice. And we were able to watch each other's videos. We're able to read each other's writing. And then within my own site, I had a very supportive principal and a very supportive staff. We had PSYOP there, which is Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, and I was one of the trainers for that. So the staff had agreed that during our, what we call PTT, Professional Teacher Time, other people call PLC because we have like the generic version of it or something. But we all agreed that we would focus on our English learners during that time. So we had PSYOP trainings, and so as a part of it, my principal was nice enough to say, I said, may I please show my videos? It's gonna be horrible, but I really need feedback. And she said yes. And so I showed my videos, got feedback, had the rubrics, and it was, you know, like standing in your underwear, like, hey, check me out. But it was also very illuminating, and I think it also created a sense of trust, like, wow, she's willing to put herself out there, you know. And I think that started something. Another teacher then videotaped herself, who wasn't going through national board, but videotaped herself using one of the PSYOP strategies and showed it. So I think it created something within the school. So while I was watching this, it was amazing. I kind of felt myself feeling all those emotions again, watching them. Like, I remember that. I was crying, you know, because I just remember all those moments with my staff and getting those scores and all of that. So yes. So another background, you know, in between this time of 2000 and 2009, going back, you know, oh, I got Teacher of the Year, oh, I was BITSA coach, and oh, look at her, you know. And of course, like everyone's like, oh, you're gonna pass, you're gonna certify. I'm like, I'm gonna certify, that's right. And of course, I did not. I missed it by 14 points. And when I was watching them, I'm like, I remember that moment of when the screen comes up, and it was just like, you know, and texting each other, and someone else is like, I missed it by 4, I'm like, I missed it by 14, and we're crying, and it was so horrible. But as they say, it's like the stages of grief when you lose someone, and it was, you know, you go through denial, like, what? And, you know, first you're angry, you cry, then you're in denial, and then you come to acceptance, and you know that it's a process. And I've really come to liken it to someone trying to get their PhD. You know, some people, you know, amazing people can do it like in 2 years if they're like, oh, I'm gonna do it in 3 years. Some people, it may take 6 or 7 years, and yes, there is a 3-year limit to national board to, you know, get it, and then you have to start all over. But yeah, I liken it to that. You know, some people can achieve in 1 year, and I really hand it to them. And some people it takes 2 years, and some people it takes 3 years. And Leslie Milch, a lot of you know her. You know, she told a great story about a man who went through all 3 years and then just decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna try a different certificate area first year, then certified. So. You know, that's what it is. It is about growth, just like those teachers talked about. It's about growing as a professional and being effective in the classroom. So, and there are things that come up. I love the fact that in this film, they talked about the personal issues of the teachers, you know, like the pregnancies and different issues, because during my first year, going back the second time, they told, oh, your dad's gonna die. I won't start crying, but he did die during that process. And when it didn't achieve, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I spent all that time working on this, and then to not achieve, like, you know, I can't not go back, because that's like saying, like, all that time I spent away from my dad was for nothing. So I was like, I'm doing this, I'm not gonna give up, and it was like, it's for my dad, I wanna get it. So sure enough, a year later, I actually also got a new job at an intermediate school, which I thought, that's so weird, no? But there were a lot of movements, as you know, classes, you know, within all the districts, we lost a lot of teachers, and so they were bumping, you know, people were being bumped out, and I said, you know what, I will go to the intermediate school because I can teach ELD there, I want to do that, make room for someone else, and went up to intermediate school, and yeah, and I was really lucky there because the principal was very supportive of me and allowed me to go back, take my PN days. And they also, I should really praise Carrie, you know, the district's been very supportive also in allowing us release days. Not all districts do that. So the district actually gave us release days to meet together and to meet there. So I used some of those release days to actually go back and borrow a classroom, because because as I started out as elementary and being in secondary, I was out of my certificate area. So I borrowed a classroom, then achieved, and I found out this year that I achieved. And it's funny because the same thing happened. I started crying. I was crying and crying and crying. It was so frustrating this year because the site wasn't working. So we logged on, and then it wasn't working. It was the next day. No, you can't get your scores. And it wasn't until Sunday or Sunday, yeah, that it was fine. I remember I was in a hotel room because it was Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm like going to the bathroom at 6 a.m. and I was just crying. I texted her. I started texting everyone. So watching them, it definitely was like reliving the whole thing again. So now I suppose, if I quickly, I think I talked a lot how it affected teaching and learning at the site. Definitely at Stallings, you saw a lot more people, a lot more teachers willing to share their practice, videotape themselves, have each other watch their practice, which I think is so important because we can't teach in a bubble anymore. And then at Rainey, when I went there, we had a PSYOP cohort there. So even though it wasn't a national board cohort, I kind of applied the things I learned from national board to an English learner cohort of training. And those teachers were willing to videotape themselves, and they shared it with the staff. And the staff had the same reaction, like, wow, they're so brave, and just they were like, oh, that child doesn't pay attention when I teach him. Oh, you know, so it was a great way of learning. So I do feel that national board teachers at sites do have the power to transform entire sites and cohorts of teachers just like theirs. So I'm so happy to have seen this film. I'm so happy that someone documented it. It's so powerful. And I think that's it for me. Thank you. Sorry I talked for so long.
So I teach in Huntington Park, which is in Los Angeles, and it's very, very similar to this film. We had a cohort. There were 11 of us who did it together, and we went through the Fullerton cohort. But unlike them, we had 7 out of the 11 out of us who certified, and we all did it in interstate. So impacted teaching and learning at our site. I think as a school, we always work together, which is why we all decided to do it together. That's just, I think, part of our culture at our school. And I think it's just made us more open into discussing what exactly do you do with kids and how are you getting through to your kids. So I think it's just made us more open in discussing how we do things.
Thank you. And so it's interesting with all the talk about teacher quality and a lot of finger pointing and, you know, LA Times publishing teacher ratings and, you know, nonsense like that. Those of us in the profession just know it's not getting to the heart of what the issue is. It's so great to hear these diverse stories about how at these different sites and different districts, teachers are taking ownership and saying this is about our profession and our growth, and we can make these changes. So my next question is sort of related to what Linda Darling-Hammond had said in the film. Collaboration is at the heart of any effective school. So PLCs, professional learning communities, is a buzzword. It's been around for a while. But truly, how is it different when you're going through a process of national board certification, or even, as Renee was describing, video clubs where you're sharing your practice? How is that different than just saying we're a PLC and we share common exams? So what's different about that?
I think that what's different about that, and again, I'm comparing it to having started that school up in East Palo Alto, because we were a professional learning community, and we would devote like 6 hours a week to working with people in the teachers in the school. We'd visit each other's classrooms, we would plan together, and there was a common purpose and a common vocabulary, as opposed to, and it was all, even though a lot of us weren't nationally board certified yet, it was driven with that language. And you know, there was an assumption that we would be someday. And so that was the standard. But working in a traditional school where, you know, as Joe Garaberi said, you close the door and only the teachers and the students know what go on in there, it's a very unhealthy environment, because there isn't a mirror that a teacher can, you know, it's like we become Michael Jackson, like nobody's saying, wow, that does not look good, or that's not working. And so that's, you know, I think it's nice to have that feedback and to feel like it's a critique as opposed to a criticism, which is what ends up happening, you know, after the principals come in and go, I heard you were doing this in your classroom, and it's like 10 years later, you know, and then it is a criticism because it's not really to help us become better teachers. So that's, you know, knowing the difference, that's what I think it is.
And I think what happens a lot at lower socioeconomic schools is PLCs become so dictated by form, where you look at this, you look at that, what are your next steps, go back and check. But the discussion really isn't in what really are we going to advance and how are we going to reach those students. And then you get to the closed door. So you've met, you've talked about it, you close your door, you do what you want anyway, come back, fill out the form. It's reality. I'm a principal. It's reality. I agree. But because it's something that has to be done. And when you're at a low performing school with all the regulations there, it's just another checklist. And what it does when you do as a cohort is you're opening up the doors to the classrooms. Teachers are going and videotaping each other. They're looking at the teaching standards. They're looking at their students. They're sharing videos. They're telling each other how to improve, and then you're reflecting on it and going back and doing the improvement. So it really does open up the doors at a school site. And once those doors are opened up and you're sharing with each other, they don't close because you've built that level of trust amongst each other. I saw this really big time at Corsini because, like Daniela's school, the conversations in the staff room were completely different. The other thing that we did too is I did take one, even though I'm board certified, and so did my assistant principal. So they were also seeing us open our doors as instructors too and sharing it. So there was this level of vulnerability across. So some of the teachers, they were sharing practice and good practice. It was a school of 75% turnover on average every year that went down to 0 within 2 years. So because those doors are open. So once teachers start collaborating and sharing, you build that culture amongst it, it makes a world of difference in an underperforming school, or those, I won't say underperforming, or I say a low socioeconomic school. The national boards, the videotaping, the sharing, and the structure of it actually open those doors and build that PLC environment.
Well, I'm coming from a little bit different perspective. So our school district does have PTT time, which is planned teacher time, and it is pretty prescriptive, exactly what you said of what our teachers do during that time. But it is based on formative assessment, in which teachers really, really look at where the kids are and where and articulating to students where they are and where they need to be and defining the pathway to that. So I think that that's a powerful piece in our PTT time. But I can tell you that in our cohort meeting, and by the way, I do want to mention that Cal State Fullerton is one of our partners and has supported our candidates, and many of our candidates come in to their Saturday support meetings as well as the meetings that we have, and that has been so wonderful for us. And you've done our funding for us and everything. We just appreciate you and Tara. But during our cohort meetings and during times when they come into my office, I try and provide 4 work days, 3 to 4 work days a year for them. And right now we have quite a few people in the pipeline, so I'm spending quite a bit of money, but well worth it. And if I have to go beg for more money, I'll beg for more money. But it's so incredible to sit and listen to these teachers and have them show their videos and have a discussion, a transparency about their practice, and listen to them provide feedback to each other. And you know, it's not, I would say it's always positive, but in some cases, feedback's not all, it doesn't always feel good. And yet our teachers are so incredibly open to the kind of feedback that they get from their colleagues because they trust them. And they're all going through this process. So I see, as they're in my office, as they're in the CNTA office, wherever they're working in cohorts, it is a powerful PLC, and it has the potential to spread like fire across the district. I hope that happens. Our current budgeting situation, it's not great, but we support them as much as we can, and they work really hard.
Yes, I forgot
Your
to.
turn.
I will be brief this time, but I do want to mention that another cohort that I was a part of was Tara's cohort here. for candidates, and then as an advanced candidate. So for 2 years, I went through the cohort at Corona Norco and a cohort. Obviously, I need a lot of support, so it was very helpful to have both. I think I already talked a little bit about the PTT PLC and the effective national board on that, but I brought this and I shared it with our school board, and I definitely, the Leslie was nice enough to give us these, and I think this is the point of, we get together for what we call the PTTs, but the PLCs, and we talk about, okay, let's look at scores, okay, what can we do differently? But I think for national board certified teachers, the conversation starts, a little more with like, what's the impact of student learning? Okay, we're doing this, but what's the impact? Do we need to change things? What can we do differently to be more effective?
So at Miles, we've been doing PLCs for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and we use a lesson study process, so we're going through that. And personally, when I was like writing all my portfolio entries and looking at what they were looking at for MBCT and looking at what we're doing at Miles, I found a really good mesh between the two. And I think that helped me a lot in what I wrote, and they seem to like that because I scored well on that one. So.
Great. So what I heard a lot of, and I'll just sort of paraphrase it, but that not only you develop a common purpose and a common vocabulary for the work you do as teachers, but that leads to a common sense of ownership. So it's not just me helping my students learn, in my case, mathematics. It wasn't just my 7th graders, but it's my colleague next door doing the language arts, and us collaborating on ways that will help them be successful across the subjects. So another point that came up in the film, and that you certainly have seen in the popular press, is this fixation with the test score, and somehow that's a magic bullet, and that's going to tell you how good a teacher is. And they sort of paint that as somewhat at odds with this notion of the national board process and the idea of collaboration, that it's about all of us working together. So how do you pin that on one individual? So what's your sense of that dichotomy? Is it that they're polar opposites, or is there some middle ground that we can find? And I'll just throw it open to any of you to jump in.
I'll jump in on that one because I do remember I had a 3rd grade teacher, Lisa Anderson, who did certify her first year, who in February was doing just about anything to let her off the hook and quit. And I just asked her, what do you need to do? What do I need to do to support you? And she gave me her IEP while she was a student. It was kind of funny. But she literally in a staff meeting says, I'm not sure this is a good idea. We are not focusing on the testing. We're focused so much on national board certification. What about the test coming up? And I kind of put on the spot with 45 plus staff members, and I said, you know what, I'm walking through your classrooms, I'm seeing the difference in the level of education going there, trust the process. And she said, okay, and she did. Everybody was finished, and then in August when the test scores out, we froze the program improvement for the first year with an API score going up about 30 points. Okay, next year, we exited out program improvement and went up another 45 points. So it was the working together and becoming better instructors, having that first quality instruction. What very few people know is we had no after-school interventions or summer school, and did it with just what was going on in the classroom. So I really believe they're together. If you have good quality first instruction and teachers are being the best teachers they can be for students, the test scores will follow. But we have to go where our kids are at, and we have to find out what they do and do not know, and teach for them and make the instruction better, which is the whole process that you're going through as you're doing national boards.
Yeah, I was just going to say that good teaching is good teaching. If you're teaching well, I mean, it doesn't matter what exactly you're teaching, it's about you're teaching in a way that engages the kids and motivates them and wants them to want to learn, then you've got it.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question regarding this balance that Mark's talking about, because most districts that I know of, the PLC time is spent around analyzing test score data, the benchmark data. So how can, why is that, if this is so good, then why don't we see more districts embrace it, or more principals embrace it, to allow the PLC time for focus on instruction? Why do you think that the culture is not there? And And what is it gonna take to change the culture?
Well, I can say that as we shift now toward Common Core standards, which I don't know if you're familiar with the Common Core state standards, but there's a new set of standards that are rolling out that are accepted in how many states? 46
46.
states at this point have are on board to go with these Common Core standards, and they're more authentic. They will not, I don't think that it will be as test driven. I know that we have quite a few years before we really have to transition over to the Common Core standards. But the interesting piece is that there are some states that have already transitioned, and but their testing is not aligned. But it's really based on good teaching. And so although the testing isn't aligned to their state tests, their test scores are higher. So, you know, it's the Common Core standards are more authentic and more, I think that they're closer to national board standards.
They're integrated, so you're looking at, like they showed us an example at the Yale Leadership Symposium in San Diego of a possible question. So it's a math question that kind of looks like a paragraph, but it's bringing in history and it's bringing this and bringing that. So as anyone who's national board certified knows, you're not looking at just, oh, okay, ELD, you know, can I teach English language development? You're looking at the connections that you're making between all your content and making the language or the content accessible to those students through the integration. So with Common Core, with the standards being so integrated and authentic and making connections for students, naturally, I think it's going to lean itself more towards what you see for national board cohorts, the collaboration and that model of a professional teacher time than a PLC. I've never been at a PLC school, so I've never been through the strict time and documents, but we use it as professional teacher time, and our union has dictated, since it's professional teacher time, that the administration has one PTT, the teachers have 3 PTTs. The teachers get to decide how they want to direct their PTTs. Usually at the intermediate school, 1 PTT is for content, 1 PTT is for team, because at my school they team. So the students have all the same teachers within a team for the different content areas. So that is more teacher driven, and the administration does not dictate what the other 3 look like.
I think another reason it hasn't spread is funding. There's an assumption because it's $2,500 a teacher to go through certification, it's a very expensive process. But when you really look at it as far as the certification and professional development, we pay consultants approximately $2,000 to $2,500 a day to come to our school site, and it's not unusual to spend $50,000 to $60,000 for professional development. So for like me, with the scholarships that were out there and grants, the professional development, when we went through Take 1 and National Board Certification for 45 teachers, was only $20,000. That sounds like a lot, but not when our school being a high priority school, a SAID school, a PI school, was spending $120,000 to $130,000 a year on professional development. So people see that initial sticker shock in the amount of money, and then there's also the fact that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess it's frustrating to me because video we saw Secretary Duncan speak, and many of the political leaders are, including our president, I mean, they say that, but then it doesn't seem like what they say is matching the policies that are coming down.
policy and funding is not matching it at all.
Because, you know, our district is in corrective action, we get $100,000 per school site. So it's not the money, but it's the restrictions on how that money is spent. So, you know, it's frustrating, because I thought what you did as principal and what you folks are doing in terms of advocating for this, but I think we do need to find a way to frame it. Common Core possibly is, I think, a good way to frame it. But,
And there's a lack of understanding of the process. Having gone through board certification and have lived it, I was able to go to my district office and say, you know what, we've had all this AB 466 training, the SB 72 training, we've had the 80 hours, the 80-hour follow-up. My teachers have gone through 3 or 4 years of it. Nothing you're going to do is going to provide any new opportunities. So I was able to write a proposal on how we could do it at our site using National Board Certification. And I was able to make that our only professional development at the school site that year.
to the national board people up there, right now, the state of California is asking possibly for a waiver from NCLB. However, as many people know, there's a condition attached, as Mark alluded, which is tying the test scores to teacher evaluation. So it's not really a waiver. But coming from National Board, what is your opinion? Do you think that the state should go for the waiver or not?
I think it's a difficult question.
That may be a question for union representatives too, because I think as we as teachers,
You're not speaking for National Board, you're speaking for you as an educator. Do you think that, the state should go down to tie test scores to teacher evaluation? Do you think that's a good, just your own personal opinion?
I kind of feel like it's already happening, but not directly stated. I mean, we are told within our district to write a goal and connect it to student achievement. So my goal as a teacher on special assignment last year, I wrote a goal that my 150 English learners would increase, at least one level on the SELT level on the California English Language Development Test, like such a percentage that was greater than the percentage from the year before, and same with the CST. And this year I wrote similar goals, and we met those goals. I'm not saying I'm responsible, because I'm not. It's a team of people that come together, we make change, and we're trying to do better things for our school and our site. So do I think that it should be, I can only speak from my own experience. It worked for us, and we wrote goals. Does that mean that a teacher should be let go if they don't make their goals? No, I don't think that that's appropriate.
What I don't see as appropriate is I don't think that that's the only measurement of teacher effectiveness. There are a lot of other things that should be taken into consideration, and I think it's just, going back to the question, there's obviously been a political movement afoot since the Nixon administration to privatize education, and that's what a lot of this is about. It's about squeezing us, squeezing public education, squeezing teachers, the districts, pitting us against each other, and which is really the big issue that's looming. It was looming last weekend in Florida at the ALEC convention, and that's what we need to address and continue being effective teachers, and making sure that our students, that we're monitoring their learning. Is that the only way to monitor their learning, through their test scores? We don't even get those until the summer, and they're gone. They're out of our hands by then. So what is it that we're actually doing in the classroom where we can make sure that they're achieving, that they're becoming global citizens, that they're being nurtured? And I don't think that that's the most effective or the only way.
And it really has to be multiple measures. It's reality. We are using test scores as part of it, but it also goes in what's happening in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, and that really falls on the administrator, site administrator, to be in classrooms, to see what's going on, to monitor the benchmarks that they're going through. But also go a step further, what support are you going to give teachers and students that are struggling in the classroom? So it's got to be the multiple measures and then the consistent ongoing. The where our evaluation system is set up in a lot of districts is 2 observations, end of the year, we're done. If you throw that type of model in with test scores, it's not going to work. So you really have to have multiple measures, and it really takes a lot of training on the administrator's part, to be able to go in and do accurate evaluations and give feedback so teachers can grow.
Yeah. And it really touches on the point that was made in the film that, who's driving this? Who's driving the bus on this? Why is it that we have policymakers making these decisions when they're not the experts about what goes on in classrooms every day with these students in the communities that you're working in? I just want to throw out there, there's a group that was formed by National Board Certified Teachers in California, Accomplished California Teachers, ACT. So if you want to look up that group, they have become politically engaged. They are working on policy documents. They have put together things that they've sent to Sacramento for policymakers to look at and be informed by. It is not exclusive to National Board Certified Teachers, but it's driven by them. And just as that effort, the National Board itself was created by teachers. The majority of its board must be teachers. The standards for all these, 34 certification areas, were written by teams of expert teachers. So this is the group that should be driving our thinking and our policy making And I encourage, all of you, whether you're board certified or not, but all of you to really pay attention to groups like ACT and like the National Board, because that's really the voice of the teacher out in the field making a difference. So the last prompt, and feel free to take it any way you want and ad-lib if you like to, is just what advice would you give to other teachers, to districts, to schools that might be thinking about board certification or this process of teacher development as a way to really help their schools become more effective? I'll start with Lisa.
I would say do it, but I would also say try to find a cohort of like-minded individuals, people who really have your same type of teaching values, because if I'm stuck with someone who I'm not seeing eye to eye with, it's going to be very difficult. I don't want to argue with you. I want to work together with you. So it really helps to have a cohort. Even we had 11, and we still broke off into smaller groups. So, and that helped a lot. And also be aware, it's very difficult. It's going to take a lot of time. I mean, we met on our Saturdays with the Fullerton group, but we also met lots of days at my house. We met at Panera, we met at Starbucks, we met so many times in my classroom. You don't even know how many hours this took. And that's aside from all the individual time that you're at your computer writing. But you learn a lot about your teaching, about what you're doing with your kids, and it's invaluable. So I would say do it.
That's what I wrote here too, do it. Yeah, so do you want us, I mean, you gave us these questions. Do we have to go through all of them?
No.
Tell me more.
What jumps to mind?
Okay, so yeah, do it. And we already talked about the support. So having support within the district helps a lot. I already said I couldn't have done it without a cohort. It's true. What's even sad, I don't know if it's sad or good, but even so the first year, nothing, walked away. Next year I come back, I tried them in a cohort, so one cohort. Then I joined the Fullerton cohort. Second year, then I make another cohort for myself. I found Tara was nice enough to send me an email from a young lady in Los Angeles who was also English as a new language, English language development specialist, and she wanted to meet with me, and so we wound up forming our own little cohort. We met in Los Angeles and we would email back and forth, and so that was helpful too, because there are so many different certificate areas. Not everyone's getting the exact same certificate, so when you're reading each other's papers, you don't really know those specific standards for yourself, so it does help to have cohorts and obviously these are teacher leaders, so they're going to make their own cohorts on their own. As far as a challenge, right now for money wasn't as much of a challenge, but now that there aren't any grants available, money is a huge challenge for our group. The advanced candidates that we have, like Harry said, 3 of them decided to go, well, we have 6 that decided to go on. The ones that started with me that first year and that are on their 3rd year, 3 are going on. 1 finally decided because of money not to go on, and I think that that's a tragedy, that someone shouldn't, that the main reason for them not to go on should not be a financial burden. That should not be the deciphering factor. So, we did suggest some different things, but it just didn't work for her. But 1 found a way, even though money was a factor, we suggested some things, and so that was able to work. But what I think is great, because they are teacher leaders, like I said, they're not going to sit back and just, okay, no money. No, they're writing some letters and sending some letters out to some businesses and trying to seek financial support. So whereas it is a challenge, I think that the challenge can be met by people who are smart and willing to go out and get some support for themselves.
The challenge is always money, and as much as what I'm able to do for them is to provide subs for them through the district. I know many districts do offer incentives for National Board teachers, whether it's an increase in salary or whatever. They do get some compensation, and it would be wonderful to have that opportunity to allow compensation for National Board teachers, because it is, as these ladies have discussed, it's just amazing how many hours that they put into National Board certification, and then they learn so much about themselves. We started with 5 teachers in the district. We've doubled that number that are National Board certified in 2 years. We'd like to have a lot more, but we're on the pathway, and hopefully as we gain momentum through our partnership with Cal State Fullerton, which we are highly appreciative of, we will continue to support and grow cohorts for National Board.
I think the challenges are the same. My one big advice with the challenges would be to ask for support. support and help. There's lots of different ways that the school site can help, be it release time, maybe some financial, maybe using professional development time, but be creative and ask for different ways for support and help on it. Because they're going to be the same no matter what. Money and time are going to be the two biggest challenges when it comes to it. Because it is literally 300 hours, if not more, if you continue on with a second and third year. You do not certify the first year. One of the bullet points here is, and I think I wanted to touch a bit about it, is why it's so valuable, because they talk about teachers not certifying the first year. And having had 22 teachers do full board certification and only 5 certify on a campus, it really, what's the next step? And I will tell you, it very much similar. There was a support, the outgrowth of wanting to help each other. 17 of those teachers did it a second year. Then we had teachers that had to do it a third year. I had 3 teachers, including the union president, who had to start over from scratch and do a different certification out of the 4th year. Currently, Corsini has 25 teachers on campus with 19 board certified teachers on it. So the fact that they continued on even after not certified tells you their value and belief in the process. The district-wide, we have over 30 national board certified teachers. So starting out, there were only 3 of us in the district, and within 4 years, we're up over 30. So it shows you where the professional development is, and not certifying is not the issue, because it's you're growing and learning. It's like when you're writing a paper, you're editing, you're not starting from scratch. You're just relearning and growing as you go.
Yeah, absolutely do it. Is anybody here considering national board certification?
Come on.
All right.
How many of you are NBCTs already?
Okay,
And there's
one
some in the
process?
process.
And how many are going to be in a couple years?
Are there some in process?
Yeah.
So in process?
Excellent.
Take one candidate or a full candidate. I know who you are.
Yeah.
It's an incredible process, and while the achievement is fantastic, it is a process. And I think that in our society, we're so achievement oriented, and we forget the beauty of the process and how that helps us grow. You know, I tell my students all the time, because of the national board certification process that I went through, I'm able to use that language to help build their muscles, whether it's in writing or thinking or just looking at things differently. And you know, and I tell them, if you're training for a marathon, even if you never get to the marathon, in a year you're going to be that much more fit. And you know, it's because it's that process. It's made me a lot more reflective. I started to hate that word after National Board Certification. Reflection. But then the irony happened when about 4 years ago, I was selected to rewrite the social studies standards, and there were 8 of us who were nationally board certified teachers, and then there were professors, there were economics professors, history professors, education professors, geographers, right? You know, so they're all in this group. And the first thing was sort of like the hierarchy. Oh, we're professors, we're teachers, right? The minute we started speaking, they were like, well, we need to hear from the nationally board certified teachers. Like they all, you know, it was the respect that that they just hearing us talk about what we do in the classroom and how we think about things, and that was very empowering. But in addition, we all fought, and I never thought that I would do this when I was going through the process, to make sure that reflection was built into every single standard, because it was just, you know, it's like, oh, I'm tired of reflecting, right? You know, if you've been through this. But then it's like, that's what made me really look at my practice, is the reflection. And when I'm there alone, I'm thinking about, why did this not work? And so it's, I mean, in addition to being a better teacher, it's made me a better colleague, I think, a better human being, because it's in there. So encourage people who aren't here, who are thinking about it. The money and the time is nothing compared to exactly what you get out of it. It's very powerful. No, that's
Right.
I'd like to add that I think going to the unions is a big opportunity for teachers too. The national board certified teachers that you have in your district, I know as administrators you can't tell them to go to the union, but they will take it upon themselves. And like a couple of us are going to present at our union meeting that's coming up in a couple weeks, just kind of give it a little overview, like what it's about, why it was important to us. And, you know, the first question is, well, there's no money, why would you do it, you know? But I mean, really emphasizing the benefits of, you know, just becoming an effective educator. And so I think, and the great thing about this state is, I mean, CTA does support National Board. They're having their CTA Good Teaching Conference in March, and the pre-conference session on Friday is on National Board certification. So they do appreciate what we're doing, and they do value National Board as an effective way to change the teaching profession.
I was just going to make a comment. First of all, I want to applaud all the administrators here that are supportive of National Board, because in our experience, Josie and I were just saying that we had little or no support from our administrators. Both of us did it on our own, and it's a very lonely process if you have no support. And thank God Tara came along for both of us, but it's hard to be out there without your administrator support.
They don't.
They don't, and
They
that's
don't
what I was
understand
just
it.
going to say. And it starts with the administrators. If they only knew how wonderful the process is, and the whole idea of being reflective as a teacher, having that time to think about your being a professional and what it really means to be a teacher to students. It's so valuable, and yet the administrators themselves aren't valuing it.
And we're changing it in our roles of administrators too. You look at 10 years ago, the administrators were mainly paperwork, and now we're really going more towards the instructional coaching model of it. So there should be some shift. My advice would be, if you're going through the process and have an administrator doesn't understand, talk to them the whole way through it, because I was the only one in my district to go through it. And I'll tell you, my principal is now, at another district, is now the assistant student. He understands the process. And it's because I spent the time talking to him. This is what I'm doing. Can you take a look at my videos? You know, look through it. Where I know there's now a school in his district that all of them have done it, and he supported it without, but they don't, there's been no education. And there's been a lot of bad talk about it too out there. So it's really educating the people around us for it.
Great. Well, we're not finished, but I do want to thank the panelists, but also let you know we do have refreshments out back, and there'll be time to mix and mingle and ask questions of the panelists. We're not going to let them run away just yet. But certainly before we get up and enjoy some refreshments out in the foyer, I would like to say thank you so much to all of you. And thank you to Tara, who